if Washington agrees. The New START treaty, which limits the number of strategic nuclear weapons each side can deploy, is set to expire on February 5, 2026. With just over 4 months to go, talks on a renewal have not started yet. The war in Ukraine has strained ties between Moscow and Washington, while President Trump has spoken of a new deal, one that could include China. President Putin has also said that he's willing to extend the current treaty by 1 year and stick to its limits, but only if the U.S. does the same. He added that Russia would reassess its position after that based on how the situation develops. This comes after the Trump-Putin Alaska summit, where both leaders discussed arms control and Ukraine, but failed to reach a breakthrough. Now, for this discussion, we're joined by Andrew Latham. He's a professor of international relations, joins us live from Minneapolis, and Professor Georgi Tolaraya. He's an international affairs expert joining us from Moscow. First, Professor Andrew, I would like to come to you for my first question. What are the potential global security implications if the New START treaty expires without renewal?
If it expires without renewal, then the caps are off in terms of the number of warheads and the number of launchers, etc. The deal was done initially back in 2010 in order to put caps on that would mitigate or dampen the escalatory tendency when it comes to nuclear weapons and nuclear arms races. It bears highlighting as well that President Putin has not offered to extend the treaty. He's made a political pledge to honor the treaty for an additional year, aspects of the treaty, not, by the way, the verification aspects of the treaty, which have been in abeyance, have been suspended since 2020 or 2023, depending on how you count it. And so that's a real concern for the United States. And another concern for the U.S. is getting China to the table. China wasn't a big nuclear player back in 2010. It is increasingly now, and ideally, from a Washington perspective, Beijing, Moscow, and Washington would be doing this deal.
And now I would like to come to Professor Georgi for my follow-up question. Professor Georgi, why do you think President Putin decided to say this now, that if U.S. agrees to do that, then we will also do it? What do you think the timing suggests?
Hello?
Yes, Professor, we can hear you. Professor Georgi, should I repeat my question?
No, it's okay. Well, I think it's a very wise and timely statement, because otherwise we will be left without any limitations to the arms race, to the strategic arms race. And this is also important for other aspiring nuclear powers to limit their aspirations, because if the two major powers do participate in some kind of control, then it puts a natural brake to others. However, it's difficult now to go on with the full-scale prolongation of the treaty, because the U.S. wants China to be involved, China doesn't want to be involved. So the time which is left is so short that it's impossible to discuss all the very complicated technical and specialized issues which are involved. So this one-sided concession, I would say, by Putin is a way to get out of the impasse. Of course, there's an element of pressure on the US as well, because Putin said that this cannot happen on condition that the US won't pursue this so-called Golden Dome, the anti-missile shield system, which could undermine the strategic potential of Russia as well as other countries. But this is, I think, a welcome juncture, a welcome development for the time being, to let the countries sort out their differences in the months and maybe years to come.
And Professor Georgi Tolaraya, why do you think now that they are thinking of joining or inviting China to, or including China to this proposal or new arms control deal? Will it complicate things further or reshape future negotiations?
Well, of course, Russia is not responsible for what Chinese want to do or what their plans are. So involving China, meaning put additional pressure on China and on Russia as well. Russia is not interested in this, and China maintains the position that their limited, that their nuclear potential, missile and nuclear warheads potential is limited. Although some experts expressed doubt in that, and that they shouldn't be a part of any bilateral negotiation between Russia and US.
And Professor Andrew, I would like to come and to you now. What do you think, why they're thinking of including China in this new arms control deal?
Well, if you go back to 2010 and the long history of US-Soviet pre-Russian times, arms control negotiations, they were bilateral. They were between two countries, the two superpowers that had the majority of nuclear weapons. China had what was called a minimal nuclear deterrent, sometimes numbered in the tens and 20s of nuclear warheads. And that's not the case anymore. China now has, depending on who's counting, some 2,000 nuclear warheads. So it is a player. It has to be at the table. It is one of the three nuclear superpowers. If the US and Russia agree to limits and China doesn't, that gives China the upper hand in some respects. So getting all three at the table to negotiate a mutually limiting or capping agreement would be stabilizing. The fly in the ointment here is not Russia. The fly in the ointment is very much China. China does not have a history or a tradition in the Cold War or post-Cold War era of participating in these kinds of negotiations and in limiting its nuclear options. And as my colleague in Moscow pointed out, one of the real complicating factors is the American anti-ballistic missile system. If you can destroy the other side with 100 nuclear weapons, and then that side develops the ability to shoot down 100 nuclear weapons, you don't have any deterrent capacity. Mutually assured destruction, both sides can obliterate each other, therefore neither side should start a war, goes out the window. So the Golden Dome is really a complicating factor here as well. China's reticence, the Golden Dome, and I wonder a little bit about the timing. I think this in some ways has to do with President Putin looking to position Russia on the global stage as a responsible nuclear power, a responsible great power against the backdrop of the war in Ukraine, etc. So I'm not discounting that diplomatic dimension either.
Right. Thank you to both our professors for joining us. Please stay with us as we stay on this